Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Popple along with two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. Giants wrap up the regular season on Sunday in Philadelphia. But, Carl, it's not the end of the season anymore. Normally we would say it's the end of the season, and then it's like, all right, what the heck are we going to do next? We got a playoff game to worry about.
Yeah, and that is the exciting aspect of this season because we were all managing expectations, knowing that this roster wasn't great and some good players left and there was salary cap hell. And to the credit of Coach Dable and his staff and Joe Shane and his tireless work and his staff's tireless work to continue to provide this team with opportunities to coach players and to put a product on the field that can compete. So I couldn't be more thrilled. And, just judging from some of the social media, I think a lot of people have been pleasantly surprised and their expectations are now sky high. And I think that's great. I think you should have expectations. Some of them are not rooted in where they started, the reality of where this team started and where this roster is now. But I appreciate the expectations and wanting their team to be the best all the time. But there's some real facts that fans will have to kind of deal with as we enter this last game of the season to get ready for the tournament.
So, listen, Carl, we had a blast in London. We love
I'm wearing
going
my
to
London shirt now.
There you go. You got your London shirt on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is it.
Listen. The Giants are 3-0 in London, and every time they go to London, they make the playoffs. In 2007, they won the Super Bowl. In 2016, they made it to the playoffs, and probably in 2022, they won in London. They're going to the playoffs. So we were at the pub, the Giants pub, had a lot of fun, and you turned me on to Big Blue UK and Ireland. So we thought, let's get those guys in their podcast, part of the Full 10 Yards podcast network, I guess. We got Shane Whitehouse and Craig Rigdon joining us from across the seas as part of the Big Blue UK Ireland podcast. Guys, welcome to the show. Shane, Craig, how you guys doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and Craig as well. And yeah, doing absolutely brilliant. Even better knowing the Giants are coming off a win and going to the wildcard weekend.
It's almost new ground for both of us as more new time fans than some of the other guys on the pod. So we're riding high at the moment. We're just rolling through.
Well, that's awesome, guys. And we met you, as Bob said, at the pub, and I'm super excited to have you guys here because the Giant fans are global, and you guys represent the best of what those Giant fans are. And I hope that you guys are excited about what direction this football team is going in, because being a long-suffering fan or being a long-distance fan, you want to have something to brag about. You want to wear those Giant shirts that you're wearing in your country and say, yeah, that's my team heading to the playoffs. So it's exciting to have you guys there as Giant fans and just spreading the love of the Giants brand.
Yeah, it's been
Shane. Go ahead, Craig.
It's been such a fantastic season, and it's really kind of G'd us all up, and it does make it easier staying up until 5 a.m. in the morning and seeing a good result than it has done recent years, where 5 a.m. is a lonely time.
Yeah.
Shane, do you get pissed when the Giants get scheduled a night game? With the 5-hour time difference?
It depends what I'm working the next day. I work shifts, so if I'm up at 4 a.m. in the morning, it's a little bit tougher. But if I know I'm not in work till 2 o'clock the next afternoon, I'm one of the lucky ones that can sort of stay up and not have to worry about waking up being tired. Like Craig said, it's all the more better when you stay up and you get that W.
So I want to hear from each of you individually on how you became a Giants fan. What made you become a Giants fan? Shane, you go first, and Craig next.
Yeah, so I've been following the NFL for a couple of years. Like I said, I was working shifts, and kind of you get home at 1 a.m, 2 a.m, and there wasn't really much on, especially UK sports. So I started to tune into the NFL. And kind of with the Giants, it kind of felt like the Giants picked me, which some people might think that sounds a little bit weird, but if you know, then you know, kind of thing. It was just a culmination of things. So I'm a soccer fan. I'll say that on this podcast. And my football team, West Bromwich Albion, plays in blue and white, the same colours as the Giants.
Nice.
First Madden game I brought, OBJ was on the cover, and the Giants were the first team I played as on there. I'd seen the Giants live in Twickenham in 2016. And then the thing that just wraps it up for me is I'm a Penn State fan. And then Saquon Barkley got drafted number 2 overall in 2018. It was like, okay, if I needed any more confirmation that the Giants are for me, that's it. And, you know, although it's been losing seasons since then, I wouldn't change absolutely anything about it. I've got to meet a great community, do podcasts with great guys, and now I'm on here, and, you know, no looking back into any doubts at all.
Nice. Craig, what about you?
So ours is, or sort of my journey to the Giants is very ingrained in our podcast. So I'm a recent entry into the podcast, but our host Dan and me have been friends for 25, 26 years. And Dan's been a Giants fan since the mid 2000s. I'd watch the Super Bowl every year because of the spectacle, and decided, you know, we need to get a team. And Dan gave me the hard sell of this storied franchise and everything that was going on, and, you know, the aura around Eli. And it was sort of, I think it was the year before we drafted Beckham that I started, and it was kind of very early on, and we went up to Regent Street. They used to do the sort of before the NFL games up there, and just the atmosphere of all the other Giants fans we ran into just hooked me. And since then, it's just every game, every season, no matter what the team is, behind the boys, and away we go.
Nice.
Shane, my question for you, give us a little flavor of what you guys discuss on the podcast, and sort of the fan reaction that you get, not only in the UK and Ireland, but do you get a lot of fan reaction throughout Europe?
Yeah, so especially kind of since the Giants come over a few months ago, the increase in fans listening and in interacting with us on Twitter, etc., has like just increased massively. But, you know, our kind of podcast will run with, we'll just break down previous game. We'll pick a key player of the game. We've started doing a player of the game as well, where we'll pick someone who impressed us, and then we'll look ahead to the next game, kind of the keys to winning that game. And then, you know, we occasionally throw in a mailbag where we invite listeners to just ping us a question via Twitter or via email on Facebook, etc. And, you know, we'll give our opinions on that. So all of us get to have a bit of a say in everything, but we're really high on kind of increasing fan interaction and, you know, our listeners getting involved just as much as well.
Do you guys get a chance to see OC Umenyiora on TV there in the UK? He does a lot for the NFL Network in UK.
Yeah, so Channel 5, ITV have the NFL show, which has OC. It also has Jay Bell on there as well. So I'm lucky enough that my wife is quite an avid fan, although not a Giants fan. She's a Saints fan. But every Friday, so this evening it will be on, she'll sit down, she'll watch that, we'll watch that together. We get the joys of watching Jay Bell and OC together. And, you know, the stuff that OC's done for the game over here is absolutely massive. He's really sort of pushed the agenda. He was on BBC before, he's moved across to ITV. We got to briefly see him at the pub in London when they were doing the Eli Manning show there. So yeah, he's been a massive advocate for the NFL over here.
Well, he represents the Giants well. Go ahead,
yeah, he does.
Bob.
No. I'm going to ask you, and then I want to get Shane and Craig to jump in on this. So, to play or not to play, that is the question this week, as far as how you think Dabes is going to handle all this, with this game meaning absolutely nothing for the Giants.
So it's probably best, for the sake of all of our Believe podcast listeners, to clarify something. the Giants will play players. They dress, 46 guys?
48 counting
Sunday.
the 2 practice squad elevations, right?
Yeah, so it's 48 guys. They're not going to sit an entire 22 starters.
Because there's more than 22, right? When you think of sub packages,
In
2
special
tight ends and all,
teams, yeah.
yeah, so there's really your core starters. It's about 30 players. Plus, you've got a backup quarterback. That's 31. You have a punter. That's 32. You have a long snapper. That's 33. And then you have your place kicker, Graham Gano, 34. So that leaves you 14 guys that aren't part of your core starting group.
So the short answer is sit them. But there are some things that I think fans should understand about how coaching works. First of all, the coach is going to do what's in the best interest of the team. But in doing so, that coach will sit down with every player who is not playing. He probably had this conversation on Wednesday when they showed up to practice. And he told them, hey, what I am going to do, and I don't know how Dave talks to his guys. He talks to them individually, but in their own different ways. But he's saying to them, we need to get you rested up for this next game. But what I do need from you is mentally to practice like you're going to play and to prepare like you're going to play, because you're going to dress and you're going to be my emergency defensive tackle, Leonard Williams, or Saquon. And, you know, it's going to take a miracle for you to get back in this game, but I need you ready to go. And a lot of those guys mentally will be prepared anyway. They are not looking for, they don't consider this a vacation from football. They're looking at it as an opportunity to get ready to play a playoff game. And I don't think anyone starts a season, any team starts a season and say, hey, we're just getting ready to play 17 games. No, the goal is always to make the playoffs. Yes, you want to win as many games as possible, but you want to win enough games to get into the playoffs. And that's what the Giants have done. And as we often say here, Bob, styles make fights. And if you have an opportunity to return to Minnesota after you lost on a 3-yard field goal,
61 yards.
Yeah, you'd probably feel a pretty good about your chances of going in there and getting a playoff road win. So why would you jeopardize that? And I know fans say, oh, you gotta go 100% all the time. Here's your chance to upset the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Philadelphia Eagles are a measuring stick, or I've even heard they need all the reps they can get. Well, they've had, since training camp, probably tens of thousands of reps. The reps are not the issue. They will be ready to play football. They're getting a week off, not a month. And the reason they coach, and I'm including myself and all of us here in it, and we don't, is because they can make decisions based on what's necessary for their team. They've done it. That's why they're in the playoffs, making the decisions that they make. And as much as fans complained about a decision to play Adoree Jackson, and many think it was a senseless injury and totally avoidable. Think about what you would be saying, fans, if they played their starters and they went out and they lost some key players against the Eagles, and then they limp into the playoffs, and the fan base would be livid. They would say it was totally unavoidable. They didn't have anything to play for. So just root these things in reality, knowing that you have a very thin roster to begin with, and you want to give your team the best chance to win. And plus, if things break the way they should, they're going to have more players against the Eagles. I mean, not the Eagles, against the Vikings than they did in their first matchup a couple weeks ago.
Exactly. What's the feeling, Shane and Craig, with your followers, with the Giant fans abroad? Are they kind of all in on resting guys and not playing the frontline guys, despite the fact that it's the Eagles and you would love to kind of mess up their number one seed?
Yeah, we had a very similar conversation on our podcast this week about, do you play the starters or not? And I completely understand and agree with everything Carl's just said. I said from a fan perspective, I'd like to see the starters play, but if the game looks like it's going to be like the game it was previously, it's getting out of hand, hook them quite early on. And my reason for wanting to play him was, number one, we owe Philly one. Like I'm not going to let that one drop, that we owe Philly one. And I'd love the opportunity to just ruin
Philly about 22 of them.
Yeah.
Just the chance to ruin their, take that number one seed away from them that they've been on about. But also, like we were saying about just riding the momentum a little bit more. We got a really good win this weekend just gone. We probably our best win that we've had, like kind of in regards to points. We put 38 on the board. So let's just ride that momentum a little bit. And then like with someone like Adoree Jackson, I said I'd probably give him a few snaps just to shake some of that rust off, because next week he's potentially going to be facing one of, if not the best wide receivers in Jefferson from Minnesota. And what way to kind of, get a bit more practice in and shag that rust off than going up against another good wide receivers in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yeah, we were pretty much almost unanimous across the board that we were quite happy for the starters to play a bit part in the game. But if it got out of hand, then as Shane said, hook them away. I think there are certain players I wouldn't risk. Big Cat, Leo, I wouldn't risk. I think he's due a week off. Aziz, I'd much rather see Aziz healthy 100% than risk him on I think he had six snaps this past week. If he's going to be on a similar snap count this week, it doesn't seem useful to have him out there for that little play. And then I guess Barkley, Jones are the two big playmakers that you'd probably say very minimal and then take them away. As much as Barkley probably wants to keep extending his rushing record that he smashed through this season, I think you've got to look at the bigger picture. And with the injuries that we have coming back, we're built for a run potentially. And playoff football is playoff football. Anything could happen. Look at the Giants in yesteryears, where we would go back when we went to the Patriots and we played our starters and Sean O'Hara goes down. That's not the kind of injury that we want to see happen to our O-line or D-line now.
Carl, correct me if I'm wrong. In '86, when you guys were rolling on your way to the first ever Giants Super Bowl, you were playing the Packers at Giant Stadium. You didn't play a good half, and then you smoked them. Didn't LT basically take himself out of the game with a chance to get the single season sack record?
Yeah.
Because he said, I don't really care about the record. I care about the championship. So I don't really care.
Yeah, and that's, as it relates to Saquon Barkley, I'm sure he feels the same way. I mean, it's the playoffs. They want, that's where you have something to prove this point in the year, when you have a chance to see a team again for all the marbles. It's a single game elimination. And no one cares at the end of the day when you go in and you play Philadelphia and then you limp into the playoffs and you lose, and no one will care about that Philadelphia game if you can't be healthy enough and give yourself a chance to win the playoffs. I mean, if the Giants had a better roster, a deeper roster, then you can have this conversation about you play all your starters a half, or you play but right now, and let's be real, in order for the Giants to win against the Philadelphia Eagles with their starters, it would involve heavy Saquon Barkley and heavy Daniel Jones. And when I say heavy, the things that Daniel Jones does well, it would expose him. But that's what it would take when you're playing your starters to give yourself the best chance to win. So listen, the coaching staff is going to coach the players that are out there. Some of those players will be starters. I would venture to say maybe 2/3 of the starters will be out there for a good period of time. Here's the other benefit I think you have in not playing your key players is that when you have guys like O'Shane Ximines, Tamon Fox, who's in a defensive rotation, they get more reps. They get better prepared for a playoff game. You have offensive linemen because we know Evan Neal is on the mend. He's not 100%. I'm not sure if his knee is still bothering, but you could just look at his play. His backups, plural. Nick Gates can go out there. He gets more valuable reps because he's been off a year, but he's been a starter at 2 different positions. So it gives him a chance. So you're going to see some household names in the game. You're going to see some guys that are starters and rotation guys that have to play.
McKinney knock off a little bit more rust, right? You don't want to see Darnay Holmes because every time he tackles somebody, you could see his shoulders all messed up.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need that. You know who I want to see, Carl? A guy that's had a pretty good career in the NFL, Jared Davis, who they signed off the practice squad for the Lions, a former #1 draft pick who's, started 50-something games in the NFL. This is a great opportunity to see how he fits and has processed Wink Martindale's defense, not in practice time, but in real time. Let's see how he does it in live game situation.
And I know for a fact the team, the defensive coaches really like JD, and they are looking forward to having him be a part of the defense because they believe he's the best linebacker in the room. A guy like, and we can probably touch on this a little more extensively, but a guy like Landon Collins, right, came off a game-changing performance for the last couple of weeks, actually. He's probably going to play some because he hadn't played a lot at that hybrid linebacker. I'm not sure he's accepted the fact that he's a linebacker, but he's a football player playing in that linebacker slot. So it gives him a little more of a feel too. And they probably wouldn't play him a whole bunch, but more reps out there within the defense from that level of the defense, the second level of the defense, will be beneficial as well. But listen, those coaches have made great decisions all year long. That's why they're in the position that they're in. And I have no problem with whoever they decide not going to see the turf at all, and whoever they decide to give 15 plays to, 20 plays to, a series to. I'm okay with that.
All right, so Shane and Craig. Shane, I'll start with you just in wrapping up. Your favorite part of the season outside of the Giants showing up in London and beating the Packers, because I know that has to have been your favorite moment of the season for both of you. So give me what one of your favorite moments from this season is, a lasting memory.
Probably this weekend just gone, to be honest, seeing MetLife the way it was. As I say, I've been a fan since kind of that the start of that 2018 season. And I said to the guys the weekend, for the first time, I think I've seen MetLife. It was packed. I couldn't see a single Colts jersey. The fans were wild, and DJ got that absolute standing ovation that he fully deserved as well, to be fair. It's kind of, he's had a lot of tough times. And I'd say this weekend, and then like the fact that, we kind of won and got in for the first ever time as a Giants fan for myself. So I'd probably say this weekend was probably the highlight for me.
I'm going to go to a single play. A couple of weeks ago, we played the Washington Commanders in what was basically a crunch time game. And Kayvon Thibodeau had a nice little triple crown moment where he was able to get to Heineke, sack, get the fumble, rumble it in for a touchdown, which was, his first career touchdown as a pro. And Thibodeau's come on in little bits throughout the whole season, and that was like an explosion moment. He does a lot of stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, which I think gets overlooked, whereas actually from a rookie perspective, in the terms of the position he plays, he's probably one of the best, if not the best, at creating pressure. So just seeing the evolution of someone that was so highly regarded at the beginning of the season, had to face adversity by not getting on the field to begin with, and then come up with a play like that to spark not just the defense, but he sparked the offense with that one play, was almost like a season changer and the clincher for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cool stuff. Guys, we appreciate you taking some time with the time difference, joining us from across the pond. Shane Whitehouse, Craig Rigdon, Big Blue UK and Ireland. Guys, great to have you on, and hopefully the Giants get scheduled to play in London sooner rather than later, because we'd love to see you guys in the pub having some fun.
Indeed. And if you guys ever get to this side of the pond, we want to have you guys as our guest as at a game, because it's a really cool experience. I know you guys love your football over there, but the fans get football fans here. It'll be a great experience for you guys.
We would absolutely love that, and there are plans afoot to come over next September, hopefully as a foursome. So we will definitely take you off on that, Carl.
Oh,
absolutely.
Awesome. We're gonna have to get you guys passes to at least come in the booth too for some of the broadcast.
Yeah.
Dream come true.
You want to be in this, you want to be in the stands, you want to be enjoying it, but for at some point to come in the booth, at least maybe in the second quarter, and experience it with Carl and I, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys,
dream come true. Thank you.
Guys, thanks for joining us. Awesome. Shane Whitehouse,
you,
Craig Rigdon, Big Blue UK and Ireland.
Thanks for having us. Great talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl, it was obviously fun having the guys on. I want to just take you quickly in a different direction here, because you bled, broke bones, gave your body not only for the Giants, but for the National Football League. And when we've talked about player safety and everything else over the years and how it's improved, we got the news on Thursday about Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills, opening his eyes, communicating. One of the first things he asked his family members and those in the hospitals, did we win the game? And it looks like this young man is progressing in the right direction. The medical staff, the instant reaction for both the Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm still marveling at, the resources that the NFL has at each and every game, and the improvements that they've made from obviously when you played to now.
Yeah, listen, the fact that Damar is communicating and seemed to be on his way out of the ICU unit at some point, tracking that way, is a miracle in and of itself. But that miracle, obviously with the help of God, was made possible by the resources and the training of the NFL medical staffs. And, just like players go through certain things in training camp, their training is just as rigorous, because you have to train for the unforeseen. And you have to be knowledgeable enough to recognize things when they happen. And to be able to administer CPR within 2 minutes of seeing that young man hit the ground, no time was wasted. And that time saved that young man's life. And, you can't say enough about the training staff of both the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. But that is training staffs around the NFL. They take their jobs extremely serious. It's not always as severe, but when you get a worst case scenario, which this was, there was no hesitation in the job that they needed to do and the way they got it done. So to all the medical staffs in all sports, hats off to you. I should say first responders. Hats off to you. And, just the research and the progress that has been made in this league from year to year in terms of making sure that defibrillators and things like that are readily available, and training medical staffs to administer CPR. Like I said, within 2 minutes of that young man falling, he was being administered CPR and life-saving CPR. So the league has continued, when they talk about health and safety of players, they are serious about it. And we all learned a lot on Monday night. And this game has forever changed, just in terms of how we view it, and what goes into every phase of football, including the medical aspect of it.
Couldn't said it any better myself, Carl. Awesome stuff. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, Bob, I want to put a partition in the Damar Hamlin conversation. I want to partition it because because I don't have information on the cause of his cardiac incident other than what we saw and what we've been told. But I want to partition it and speak to the families of parents of kids that aspire to play football or that are currently playing football. The number one thing, and this has nothing to do with Damar Hamlin. Now, again, I'm partitioning this, but I know everybody saw it, and parents are concerned about the safety of their children playing this sport. As a parent, and I can tell you firsthand experience from what my father used to do to me. My father never played football, but the number one thing that my father said, and this is how you can help your kid, equipment is important. Don't, at an early age, do not allow your kid to take more equipment off so they could be faster or stronger. The NFL equipment, folks, is state of the art, right? And they always say guys are stronger, faster, all these other things. But make sure equipment, helmets are fitted correctly, right? Shoulder pads are fitted correctly. Thigh pads, all of these things are important because they build this equipment for a reason. Don't let your kid compromise that for anything, because they build it to do certain functions. And if you are having second thoughts about letting your kid play and you decide, okay, we're going to do this, the number one thing you better make sure your son does, or your daughter in any sport, make sure that the equipment is properly fitted and that your son, no, I don't care if it's a walkthrough and they require a helmet and shells, make sure that that kid goes on the field with the proper equipment. It's important. It gives you even more comfort in knowing that your kid has done the best he can. He's done his part to play the game safely and can still have fun with it.
Perfectly said, Carl. Well, how do we end it? Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
We'll talk to you next week. Believe in Giants.